Good morning, Year 3. Today we're going to be looking at the results of our experiment looking at how water is transported through the stem of a celery stick. As you can see, I've got mine here. When I first look at it, it actually doesn't look that much different, but if you look closely, I'm going to take out my celery now. If you're doing this at home, make sure that you've got some newspaper or something down because it might get a little bit messy with the food dye dripping off it. Already, we can see when I pull it out, there has actually been a change of colour all the way through it here, which is interesting. But for me, more interesting is if you look at the top, this is called a cross section. What I've done is I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to chop the top off like this. If you're doing this at home, please make sure you get an adult to do this. Okay, so if we look down from the top, I don't know if you can see that, but there you can see that there are lots of little red dots. It's a little bit out of focus for some reason. Let me see if I can show you that better. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so it's not gone all the way up through the whole stalk. It's gone up through these little dots. And if I cut off another section, you can see the same thing. So what that is telling me is that these little dots run all the way down the stem. And so these are the little tubes that we were talking about in our last lesson. So they're the tubes that the water gets sucked up through as it goes from the roots into the leaves. And what I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to take this piece that I've cut off and I'm going to try, again, if you're doing this at home, I would say don't try this at home, get an adult to do this. But I'm going to cut, or try to cut, across all of those dots and I'm going to see what that looks like. So I've made a little cross section there and you can see that there's proof that these dots are actually lines that are going all the way down the celery. So they are the small tubes that we were talking about last time. Now I know I said in the last lesson that water is sucked up a bit like a straw, but that's actually not true. What's happening is the water is gradually soaking up through the stem through a process called capillary action. So that's one of our new vocabulary words there, capillary action. And we can see that using any material that's absorbent. I've got a tissue paper here. You can dip that into any water. I'm going to use this same jar of colouring. And you can watch you can see the water going up there, and that's the same process that is happening inside the celery stalk. So it's just getting sucked up through, it's absorbing up through the stalk, and it's going up into the leaves, the next part in the water's journey through the plant. So now it's time for you to fill in your worksheet with your observations. So I want you to write full sentences in your observations about what you saw happened. If you didn't do it, then you can use my experiment, obviously. And so what you saw, or what I saw, was the coloured water moving up through the stem by a process called capillary action. So you must use the words transported and capillary action in your write-up. So I'm going to leave you to do that now. The next lesson I'm going to put up very shortly, and that's going to be the next lesson in our science unit of the life cycle of plants. And we're going to be looking at what happens when the water gets into the leaves and the function of leaves for the plant. So that's the next lesson. So go ahead now, write up your experiment, make sure you've done a nice diagram of what you did or what I've done, and your observations, and your conclusion. Yep, so our conclusion is that we know that water is transported up the stem through capillary action. Okay, bye.